I'm working, and I get a call saying that it was from law enforcement back in Louisiana. I get a call saying it was a courtesy call. That's how they phrased it.
Yeah.
Saying that my dad has been indicted for my mother's murder.
My daddy is the best that ever was.
All right, welcome everybody to the Fatherhood Show. I'm your host, TJ Voigt, and I'm here with Reggie Reed, who probably has one of the more interesting stories that I've heard in a long time that I don't even know the whole story, so we'll get into it today. So again, Reggie Reed, man, how are you today?
Can't complain, brother.
Good.
Good day.
So we start, man, just asking, where are you from? Like, tell me where is Reggie Reed from? Where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
So I was born in Hammond, Louisiana.
Okay.
It's right in between New Orleans and Baton Rouge. It's like 45 minutes from New Orleans. About the same distance from both cities. Small city.
Yeah.
You know, but that's where my roots are. That's where all my family was from. You know, and throughout the outskirts of Hammond.
Yeah.
But when you ask me where I'm from, that's where I'm from. I call it the real H-Town.
Okay, I'm not sure how people in Houston's gonna take that. But we'll go with that. So Hammond, Louisiana, man.
Yeah.
So y'all had, what, one high school?
One high school. We had one Catholic high school, and then we had one public high school.
So, because the school system in Louisiana is a lot different from Texas, where I grew up.
Totally different. I'm realizing that now, being in Texas.
Yeah.
It's like you got all these school districts. I'm like, we had one school. Look, in all transparency, it's like you either go to the white school or the black school.
That's interesting, man. So, did you have siblings growing up?
No, not growing up.
Okay.
I was the only child from my mother.
Only child from your mother?
Yeah.
Okay. Grew up by yourself, so to speak. How was that for you?
It was, it was different. You know, it's kind of like when you don't really know, like what the other side looks like. It's like, you really have nothing to compare to.
Because you didn't grow up with anybody else.
Right. So just a little background on me.
Right.
My mother was murdered when I was 6.
Wow.
So my dad had to step in.
Right.
Well, not had to. He had two options, in all transparency, because my mother was tragically murdered in Hammond.
In the small town?
Yeah, in the small town.
Wow.
She went out, just to give you a brief overview, she went out one night, never came back. Woke up next day, police was at the door. So yeah, she never came home. So anyway, I was raised as the only child by my dad. My dad's a Marine. So I was more so.
Was he not to cut you off, was he in the Marines while you were growing up?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So my childhood was more, I was raised to survive.
Yeah.
Versus being raised to, live and enjoy life.
That happens a lot.
Now, granted, I enjoyed life, but it was survival mode for me.
Yours was even more so, because that's kind of the issue with a lot of black kids in America, right? Where we're just raised to survive, but even more so for you.
Yeah.
So let's circle back, man. I don't want to bring up anything triggering or anything like that, but did you live with both your mom and your dad before she was taken from you?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your mom leaves, and then you never see her again, and it becomes.
Never saw her again.
I'm sure, you got the details of everything? Not you had to share with us, but you got the details of her murder and things like that, and.
Yeah, at 6, it's like what.
You don't really know what's going on.
You don't really know what's going on. Years later, as I got old, I started to talk about it.
Yeah.
With my dad. I was born. We lived in the hood.
Right.
Where you start hearing rumors, you start hearing crazy stuff.
Of course.
And it's like my dad, he really protected me, so to speak. I went to parochial school, Holy Ghost Catholic school.
Right.
I was the only African American that went to that school. Just to give you a little context of how that looked. That bus didn't come in our neighborhood.
The school bus?
Yeah, the school bus.
Okay.
No, so My dad literally had to take me to school every single morning.
Wow.
Every morning.
Wow.
Had to drive me to school and pick me up.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I had kids in the neighborhood used to make fun of me because
Right.
you know they told himself a story as if, oh, he thinks he's better or whatever. But hey, that was a choice of my dad.
Right.
You know, he just wanted me. You know, that was the preference.
Right. Did he ever tell you why he made that choice for you?
You know, we talked about it. He was just kind of higher level with it.
Yeah.
You know, just like, you know, I want the best for you.
Yeah.
Best education.
Yeah.
You know, and I recall him saying that, you know, well, I recall some of the expenses back then.
Right.
Like, you had to pay.
For sure.
You know, my dad was a single parent.
So let's talk about that, because we'll get into how that seeing your dad be such an entrepreneur kind of affected you later. But as a kid, single parent, you think mom, typically.
Right.
So
right.
growing up as a single parent in a single parent household that was just your dad, how was that for you?
Man, it was rough.
Yeah.
It was rough because. And not necessarily in a bad way. Now that I look back.
Okay, but at the time you probably like, man, this boy is tripping.
At the time, it's like it was rough, man. It was, you know, because I tell you, I share this story with my wife,
right?
You know, throughout our time together. Mm-hmm. That my dad used to make, you know, he chastised me,
right?
You know, I caught whoopings, you know,
mm-hmm.
I know what they call them in Texas,
right,
but,
right. Same thing.
Okay. Yeah. But I remember times where I had to copy the dictionary, write lines, you know. My dad made me read. I hated it. Every time, like literally, before I go out to play, I had to read an article in Business Week magazine or Time magazine.
Okay.
Had to read an article, highlight any word that I didn't understand or didn't know how to pronounce, had to highlight it and write the definition of it. And this wasn't even punishment.
This is what you had to do.
What I had to do.
That was your dues to go out and play.
That was the dues. And furthermore, I had to read the article in front of my dad. And I cried.
So you couldn't
every time. Seriously, you laugh, but it was like the worst part of my. Honestly, I look back and like that's the worst part of my childhood. Had to read, and if I didn't look up enough and address him, I had to start over.
Man, that's crazy because I'm looking at it from a 30,000 square foot view, right? And I'm just like, he was actually training you for the business world.
Exactly.
Did he ever explain it to you like that?
Well, yeah. Later.
Okay.
But back to your initial question, it was rough. You know, it was different. Now that I look back, you know, I was, by all means, I had my freedom.
Right.
You know, because at the same time, you know, it was twofold. Mm-hmm. I did a lot of things that a lot of other kids wasn't able to do. Like, I was able to hang out a little later than, you know, my best friend up the street.
Right.
Because mom wasn't around. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
Moms are more
protective.
Yes, like you need to be home. Dad is strict, but it's like, you know, I'm gonna let you out once you grow up. You gotta grow up to be a man. You know, I remember staying at home at, you know, early ages. Not super early, but I don't know, maybe around 12, just for a couple hours. Because, you know, I had my grandma. You know, my dad's one of 16 kids.
Right.
I think that's right, but he comes from a big family.
Big family.
My family was there, you know, my grandmother, my grandfather, but it always like, you don't want to wear out your welcome, you know, and it's like, if he had a quick business meeting to go to on a school night, he might run and be back, you know. And he always tell me, page me if you need me.
But he was always there.
He was always there, you know what I mean? You know, that's when beepers were in, you know, page me. You know? But no, like I say, I was raised to survive.
Right. All the way through, so you went to the Catholic school from all the way through high school?
No.
Okay.
So went to Catholic school, kindergarten to 6th grade. Got held back in the 6th grade because, you know, I was dealing with trauma.
Yeah, for sure.
Dealing with trauma. Catholic school is different.
Right.
You know, it was a lot. it was strict, very strict, and you know, and some of the things I just couldn't get it.
Yeah.
So, and I guess they felt the need to hold me back in the 6th grade. So from that point, I transitioned to another private school.
Okay.
In Hammond, which was Southeastern Laboratory School.
Okay.
So it was a lab school.
Yeah.
So I went there.
Science, like science driven, or what do they mean by lab school?
That's a good question. To this day, I really don't know. It was, you know, it was one of those private schools. Just to give you a background. So it was a private school adjacent to the university in Hammond. Cause
Southeastern.
Yeah, Southeastern is Hammond. So it was basically on the campus.
Okay.
And I refer to this school as free spirit.
Right.
And what I mean by a free spirit school, literally, it's like the grades 1 through 6, they were like out in the open. And what I mean by that is they didn't have separate classrooms. It was like you have the library, then you have this big open space, and each class was just separated by
like a partition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you could see like what the 2nd graders are doing, and the 2nd graders could see what the 5th graders are doing.
Right.
The only classes that were actually enclosed, if I recall correctly, was I think 6th and 7th grade.
Okay. So that's weird.
Different dynamic.
Yeah. And that's weird because now open concept classrooms are like a thing.
Right.
So
But yeah, that's what it was.
Okay.
Open concept learning environment, and I remember you had to be on a wait list to get into school.
Wow.
So anyway, I spent time. That's why I graduated. You know, then I had an option. You know, I went to 8th grade, SOU lab school, finished there. Then my dad he was pushing me towards St. Thomas, which is the Catholic high school.
Okay.
That was my trajectory.
Is your dad Catholic?
Yes, my whole family's Catholic.
Okay.
And I was like, I don't want to go
to
Catholic. I want to go to Hammond High Public School.
Right. That's where your boys from the hood was going.
That's where my people at. And he was really not for it. And I'll never forget, he was like, you got 1 year. And he said, don't F up.
Right.
He said, don't F it up.
For sure. 1 year in public school.
In public school.
Okay.
And I made it.
Okay.
So that's why I ended up graduating from. But the transition was.
Tell me about that. How was that transition from the parochial school to the private school to now full blown Hammond High from your boys from the neighborhood?
Yeah, it was because I would tell you my saving grace was I would say, like, you know, I had cousins that went to Hammond High that was in a couple grades ahead of me. And my family is well known throughout Hammond.
Okay.
The Reeds.
Okay.
So I would say that gave me a little credibility and a little leverage because it's like, we're gonna come a little slack.
Right.
But I got it, man.
Yeah.
I was brought through the ringer.
They had to test you.
Yeah, you know.
You was a private school boy.
Yeah, because you know, I come, you know, button up uniforms.
Yeah.
I was navy blue pants.
Yeah.
Sky blue shirt.
Yeah.
With a little Catholic emblem on there. Seriously. That's how I roll.
Yeah.
You know, but then public school, you wear what you want.
Right.
But no, they knew, you know, Hammond Small, they knew like, oh, you come from the inside.
Right.
Now you on the outside.
Right.
But it was interesting. You know, I people, I didn't, you know, thank God I didn't have any like major hiccups.
Right.
You know, people test me. I remember, I don't know what grade, maybe it was freshman year. You know, I had a gold chain that my dad. It was a rope chain.
Right.
14 karat gold. It's like one of my dad's pride possessions.
Yeah.
And you know, me and his son's like, oh, you want to be like Dad.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
It's like, hey, let me wear the chain.
Yeah.
You know, he finally let me wear it, and a guy tested me in the free enterprise class. Mm-hmm. He tested me. I'm not gonna name his name because he might see this.
Yeah.
But we cool now. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but he tested me. They were free enterprise. I don't know what one thing led to another. He's like, I'll break that chain.
Yeah.
He said, say I won't. You know, you done heard that game before. Mm-hmm. You know, and I'm like, you won't? He popped it. He broke the chain.
You got to squabble at that point.
But I didn't fight.
Yeah.
I didn't fight. I'm not a fighter.
I got you.
You know, I just kind of took it in stride. I don't even know what happened. I just took it and, you know what, say, you know what, it is what it is.
How'd your dad react to that?
I don't recall.
Yeah.
I think I may have told a small white lie of how the class broke.
Yeah.
But, the good thing I still had the chain.
Yeah.
So anyway.
That's good. So tell me what was the biggest difference for you, like the biggest adjustment for you going from private school that you didn't want to go to, but you ended up going to now the public school that you did want to go to? Like, what was the biggest adjustment for you?
I would say the biggest adjustment was just having a little bit more freedom in how to regulate it.
Okay.
And still, while satisfying my dad, you know, because I still had, you know, he was very stern.
He had the high expectations for you.
Yeah, like, you know, and I'm gonna be honest, man, I wouldn't say cut corners in Catholic school, but, you know, I did some things where, you know, I just, hey.
Most people do things in Catholic school they don't want to tell you about.
I'm like, sometimes I signed it for his signature, you know, some stuff.
Kid stuff.
You know, kid stuff.
Yeah.
But no, it's just a high expectation, you know, and you know, my biggest adjustment was, like I say, I had a little freedom, and I just had to adjust to my people.
Yeah.
Because
now you with them all the time, not just when you get to the house.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I had to adjust to that and be like, you know, how do I like integrate myself and, you know, and I hate to say be normal, but like I was normal, but they saw me as abnormal.
Yeah.
Because my dad took me to school every day.
So let me ask you this. And then we'll kind of, you know, move past it, but do you feel like you had to code switch at an early age? Like you got to be a certain way when you go to public school, and then when you come home, you know, maybe untuck the shirt a little bit, be a little different, talk a little different?
No, because, you know, at that age, you're not thinking, you know, I was a nerd, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I guess later I felt like, I had to be a little cooler.
Once you got to Hammond High.
Yeah. But just in general, like, you know, I had like coming home from Catholic school, I played in the neighborhood. You know, but they had certain people that were just quote unquote haters or whatever.
Of course.
Threw rocks.
Of course.
You know, threw rocks at me, you know, I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
But no, it wasn't just, I come home and I just put on chains. You know, I'm sagging
That's
my
good
pants
though, man.
and,
Yeah.
You know, I was still, I had my uniform on.
That's kind of a testament, man, to know yourself that deeply. Even though you probably didn't know that's what you were doing, but to be comfortable in your own skin at that age.
I was comfortable in my own
Probably
skin.
something you got from, you know, your dad, military man, and you understand it. So from there, okay, you graduate Hammond High, and you go to college. Where?
So my college path was different than most.
Okay.
I took a zigzag approach, but initially I went to Southeastern.
Right in Hammond.
Right there in Hammond. And my dad, and I stayed on campus because I was like, in the college maybe like 3 miles away from.
Yeah.
You know, but I was like, you know, I want to experience college. My dad was, he's like, I want you to live college, you know. But at the same time, it's like, I just really, I wanted to have my independence. You know what I mean? I got a dorm room. You know, at that time I was dating a girl. We were together, transitioned from high school, both went to Southeastern. And you know, it was cool, you know. But you know, my dad and I, we had some light tension at that point. At that point in my life. You know, because he had started a company that was involved in government contracting. And he was really pushing me in that direction.
You need to follow in his footsteps.
Yeah, he like wanted me to, you know, like learn the business and, it was a grassroots project. You know, it wasn't like this big Fortune 500.
Right.
It was a grassroots project, and I did some things with it.
Right.
You know, I did, but you know, at that age, we want to do what we want to do.
Absolutely.
And you know what my major was when I started?
What was it?
Theatrical arts. Seriously.
Dad, how did your dad feel about that?
He was just like,
What are you doing?
yeah.
Yeah.
What are you? And I was like, what am I doing? Later.
What made you choose that?
I don't know. I was a fan of TV and actors. I was like, I want to be an actor.
Okay.
You
Now
know
that
what I
makes sense though when you explain it that way.
Yeah. No, I was a fan. Like seriously, I even looked at going to Juilliard.
Okay.
Like literally, I was
Right.
just, but I didn't have the. I'm not saying I had a bad support system, but I didn't have the support system needed to
Right.
transition to something like that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I didn't have that. That wasn't in my life.
Right.
That wasn't in my deck of cards.
Right. So you wanted to, you majored in theatrical arts initially
Yeah.
at Southeastern.
Yeah.
Okay. And then when did you switch?
I don't recall exactly, but
Right.
I end up switching to, I think business.
Okay.
Just general business.
General
or
business,
something like that. Cause like I was balanced. I was juggling. Like my dad was literally pushing me to do this business.
Right.
You know, it's like, look, I'm trying to set you up.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't. You know, I just wasn't into that. I look back now, like, man, I could have.
Yeah, but in his mind, he thought he was doing what was best for you.
Right.
Right.
And you know, I was like, whatever. And like I said, I made some things happen. I learned at an early age about entrepreneurship.
Wow. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I got experience that very early on that most people wouldn't have got. You know, I was talking to buyers and, you know, literally dealing with federal contracts.
Wow.
On a technology level. Literally dealing with Department of Defense, Department of Interior, selling computers, basically. But that just really wasn't my forte.
Right.
So I spent some years at Southeastern just trying to navigate, figure out what's going on. And then I had a huge breakup, you know, with the girl I was dating.
Right.
We broke up, and that kind of forced me to pivot where I wanted to go next. Hammond, small town, again, still young.
Right.
And it's like we were together, you know, like that was like, she was my shadow.
High school sweetheart.
Yeah,
Right.
you know, and it's like, man, how am I gonna deal with this? I said, I gotta go.
Right.
So and then like I say, the tension was brewing between my pops and I.
Yeah.
You know, it just, we wasn't seeing eye to eye, and it was just.
Which happens with father-son relationships typically.
Because men.
You just
A lot
bump
of people don't
heads.
understand that. It's like,
Yeah,
I
you
don't
just
care,
bump heads.
you just men.
Yeah.
So hey, it is what it. You know, I still respected him.
Right.
Still have respect for him today.
Right.
Utmost respect for him. But you know, so anyway, that brought me to applying one summer. Don't remember the actual year, but I applied to University of Louisiana at Lafayette.
Okay.
In Lafayette, Louisiana.
How far is that from Hammond?
That is 2 hours.
2 hours. Okay.
Yeah, because 1 hour.
Because we in Texas where you can drive 2 hours from Houston and still be in Houston.
Oh, you could drive 2 hours in San Antonio,
It's
still
for
be in
sure.
San Antonio.
For sure. Yeah.
So yeah, it's like 2.5 from Hammond. So yeah, got accepted. This one summer I applied, and I was like, just static. You know, I was like, hey, it's new start, new beginning. Moved to Lafayette. It's like new beginning. It's like a new life. So I moved to Lafayette. Went to college there, and that really, you know, made me start to feel like, okay, like I'm really independent now. Like I'm literally away from home, and I gotta. And my dad wasn't in a great financial position to, you know, provide me with an allowance or anything. So I had to grind. I had to get it.
Right.
So anyway, moved to Lafayette. I majored in, I think by that time I was in general studies. You know, then general studies. Got my first job at the Gap.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, need a job.
Right.
Got at the Gap, going to school, trying to balance both, you know. Didn't like the Gap, so you know what? I'm not trying to fold clothes. So I was in the mall,
Right.
Acadiana Mall. So next door was a camera shop called Rich Camera.
Okay, yep, heard of it.
Used to be also known as Wolf Camera. So connected with some people, got hired there. Sold cameras. So this kind of really started my sales career.
Right.
You know, worked over there. I enjoyed that, looking at people's pictures, you know. And then still going to school now, still trying to figure that out. You know, and then worked there maybe almost a year. And then I started with T-Mobile.
Okay.
Still going to school.
Right.
Worked at T-Mobile, still majoring in general studies, still trying to get my education. Because one thing I remembered while doing all of this is that one thing my dad always taught me is that, you know, it's one thing a person can't take from you. Right. And that's your education.
Now, was he college educated?
No.
Okay.
He went to Southeastern, but he wasn't a graduate of Southeastern.
Gotcha.
You know, so I always just had that stuck in my mind. And I always knew, like, you know, literally had that stuck in my mind. I'm like, hey, they can't take my education. So I need to be educated.
That's true.
I need to get my degree.
Right.
So had the eye on the prize, worked for T-Mobile for a couple years, had great success. Then a good friend of mine who I was working with, he moved over to AT&T.
Okay.
I was working at a kiosk in the mall.
Right.
So all this is happening in the mall.
Right.
And I was known as a cell phone man in Lafayette on the campus.
Right.
So all this was going on.
Because you selling phones, plans, cases,
and you
clips
know,
back then.
Right. And then I'm on the campus. They know me. Everybody goes to the mall.
Right.
They like, and the kiosk is stationed right by the food court. So I'm working on a Saturday, like, Reggie, So I'm like, hey, I'm one of the top salesmen because I'm connecting, the network. So they, you know, I'm selling when I'm going to class.
Right.
So anyway, I'm like, come see me, you know. So anyway, my friend, he transitioned to AT&T. So he started over there. He used to pass by. He was like, man, I'm making a lot more money over here. You know, he used to come tease me and whatever. And then I was like, man, y'all got any openings, whatever. And long story short, you know, think about, almost 2 years into me working there, I transitioned to AT&T. So I started my career there, still going to school.
Right.
Okay, I don't know what year I'm on with school now. But I'm still in there.
Right.
Still in there. So started with AT&T, navigating that, continued to like excel, got promoted to like assistant manager, where I moved to Gonzales, Louisiana.
Okay.
And that's when I had to take a step back and look at what am I doing with school.
Okay.
So
Gonzales is, and so you're in Lafayette. How far is Gonzales? It's pretty far away.
Yeah, Gonzales, it was like an hour and a half.
Okay.
From Lafayette.
Okay.
So at that point, I had the opportunity to get promoted, but I had to work at that store.
Okay.
So I didn't move. I don't know if I said I didn't move. I stayed in Lafayette, but again, I still want to get my education. So that's when I went to University of Phoenix.
Okay.
Online. Which a lot of people look down on. It's like
back then. Back then.
Online, it was like
now
what?
It's normal.
Right. Now it's normal, but back then it's like online degree, whatever. So I did that. You know, I went off. You know, I took a chance.
Right.
But that was the only way, because I always told myself, I don't want to be a broke college student.
Which most of us were.
So I was getting money. I was doing stuff, you know. I'm in college. We go out on a Thursday. I'm buying drinks for everybody. As a college student. I had money. I was making money.
Yeah.
You know, selling cell phones, making money. So I did both. I ended up getting my bachelor's from University of Phoenix. You know, but I was driving.
Back and forth.
Back and forth.
Wow.
from Lafayette to Gonzales.
So it's an hour and a half one direction.
Yes.
Jesus. Okay.
In the Yukon.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about like all of
Gas.
this, man, definitely. All this leads to kind of the career you got into.
Exactly. So I did that,
Yeah.
you know, for 6 years and got my degree because during that time, I, you know, was also looking for my next step.
Right.
Like, what am I doing next? You know, I started meeting people in the pharmaceutical industry.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've been hearing great things. Like, man, they really doing it. You know, they really making a good living for themselves in that industry. You know, healthcare.
Right.
So I connected with some people, but it was always told, you gotta get your degree. So at that point, I had made some connections, and I got my degree.
Mm-hmm.
But then it was like, but you got your degree from University of Phoenix.
You got to get this degree, the one that we want.
Right. So I was like, you know, I was able to connect with a good friend of mine's brother who worked at Pfizer. That's the company I work for. So it gave me a chance. It's all about a chance, right?
Yeah.
You know, I tell people, where you got your degree really doesn't necessarily define you.
It doesn't.
You know. So anyway, I was given that opportunity. I was given a chance, you know, and that's what brought me to Texas.
Okay.
You know, I applied with Pfizer, went through the interview process, got the golden opportunity. That moved me from Louisiana to Texas.
Okay. So you get here to Texas, you know, to what city?
San Antonio.
To San Antonio.
Yeah, that's what moved me to San Antonio.
So you come here and you move to San Antonio, man, and so you know, kind of fast forward and you meet your wife.
Right.
Right. You date for a little while, and then you know you pop the question.
Yeah.
Right. Talk to me now about because I mean, a pharmaceutical sales rep, you're traveling a lot. Moving around. It could possibly be, you know, one of my good friends, you know, shout out to my boy Andre, has been a pharmaceutical sales rep for a while. And it's funny because he got kind of recruited from working at Verizon.
Okay.
So he was in like the Verizon management trainee program. And I guess apparently if you can sell phones, then you can be a pharmaceutical
I've met a lot
sales
of
rep.
people within the industry that, you know, I find out now, I'm like, you worked at Sprint?
That's what I'm saying, man. I don't know what that pipeline is about, but obviously it's a pipeline somewhere.
Right.
But you travel a lot. And then like you said, we can also, you know, they have layoffs and you got to change companies and this person's bought stuff out of your control. So how was that for you working in such, you know, trying to juggle, you know, a relationship now that's budding to a marriage and then this career that calls you to travel. You never know if you have to switch companies. How was that for you?
It was a challenge, but it was a challenge in its own way.
Right.
When I met Paula, now my wife,
Right.
Shout out to Paula.
Shout out to Paula, my girl.
She was in law school
Yeah.
in Lubbock.
Yeah.
And it's like, I have to share this
Right.
because, so when I met Paula, we were at this club in San Antonio. This club that she wouldn't expect me to be at.
Right.
And I damn sure didn't expect her to be there. It was one of them
Right.
type of clubs.
Right.
Like, what are you doing here? So I met her there initially. And the first time I met her there, I didn't ask for a number.
Right.
So maybe like a year later, I met her again at the same club. And I kind of I referenced something we spoke about last time, and it kind of caught her attention. Now I asked for a number, and the rest is history.
Right. Rest history.
But anyway, she was in law school at Texas Tech in Lubbock, you know, and I forgot what year she was in law school at that time, maybe third year, transition to fourth year, but, you know, I'm doing my thing here, so a lot of my traveling was to go and see her because my territory at the time covered mostly San Antonio. You know, I had to travel like out of state for like business meetings.
Right.
But most of it consists of in city, you know, in the outskirts, whatever.
Right.
But a lot of my lengthy travel was to Lubbock.
Right.
6 hours away, San Antonio.
That's love, boy.
Hey.
I ain't gonna hold you. Now, fast forward, she graduates from law school.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, did y'all get married before? Y'all got married after that? After she graduated from law
Yes,
school?
after.
All right. So talk to me, man, whenever you found out that y'all were having a baby. What was that initial feeling like when she told you, I think I'm pregnant?
It was, you know, it was a surprise, but the path we went down was a little different.
Okay.
You know, because we both are busy professionals.
Right.
You know, and it's like we came to a point where it's like we had several discussions like, do you want kids? Do we want kids? And
You got to plan it out with you guys as professionals.
yeah,
Right,
you
right.
know, and you know, look, I'm a Christian.
Right.
You know, I don't walk around with a Bible in my pocket, but you know, I'm a Christian. I believe in God.
Right.
You know, I'm God fearing, and it's like I get it when people say, "Oh, it's a blessing," but at the same time, you got to be realistic.
It's a responsibility too.
Like,
for
you
sure.
gotta be realistic.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
okay. So we had several discussions on, you know, like, do we plan to have kids?
Right.
So anyway, we tried and we were like on that point, like, okay, we made the commitment, so
Right.
we're gonna try, and it just wasn't happening until, you know, we sought out some external resources, you know, and we continue to try, and I never forget. Obviously, I was in Houston
Right.
for a meeting, and she was like, I'm gonna take this test because, you know, she's like, I think I'm pregnant, but I'm gonna take this test.
Yeah.
But I'm just gonna leave it in the bathroom, and when you get home, you
Right.
like, okay. So when I got home and, you know, went in the bathroom, it said pregnant. It was one of those digital
Right.
tests, and it was, you know, of course, I'm a joker. You know, I looked at it and was kind of like disappointed
Right.
playing. But then, no, I hugged her, and we both shedded tears, and there it was.
It is. Yeah.
You know, that was the beginning.
Right.
So no, but you know, from that point, it was just like, it's kind of surreal.
Yeah.
You don't really know
Yeah.
what's going, you know, because it's like, I didn't realize until then is that you don't supposed to tell people until a certain
So
period. You know,
Right.
Maybe like 12 weeks.
Right.
I don't know. You don't just go out because things can happen.
Yeah, things can happen.
You know what
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean? I'm like, okay, so whatever.
I didn't either because
Yeah.
we got, you know, my son was born when I was 34. And so
Okay.
it was one of those, you know, we right on the edge of quote unquote high risk or whatever. So we went
Right.
through similar things, but
Yeah.
you don't want to tell everybody until you kind of pass the,
Right.
you
The
know,
threshold.
Yeah, until you
And
pass
it's-
the threshold. So yeah, we waited probably about 4 or 5 months before we told everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's how we were. You know, we waited, then we start, hey,
Yeah.
spill the beans.
Yeah.
But no, it was exciting, you know, to say the least,
Right.
obviously. But man, and it's also scary.
That's what I was gonna say. So with your childhood and kind of some of the trauma you had to endure, 2 questions. One, when did you feel like you started to kind of get through it? Like just the whole traumatic idea of my mom was murdered and so she's not here, so it's just my dad.
I never got through it.
Right.
You know, I maybe have masked it,
Okay.
but you never get through that.
Right.
You know, I see myself as a pretty strong individual, but you know, I have my weaknesses.
Right.
And Paula makes sure she points those out.
I'm sure most husbands could probably, you know,
And when
agree
I
with that
say
sentiment.
weaknesses, you know, you got look at it. You know, just like I, you know, refer back to my upbringing.
Right.
You know, it was just father and son in the house.
Yeah. So leading in, talking about the fear, man. Obviously, there's fear with just being a father.
Oh
right?
yeah.
But did that fear kind of subside, or did it start to increase as we got closer to his arrival, or exactly what was that fear? What were you afraid of?
You know, just growing up, a lot of people fear death.
Right.
A lot of people fear death, or fear the death of someone. You know, and that was my number one fear.
Okay.
My number one...
Because you had experienced it at a very close level.
Right. My number one fear was not being successful.
As a father or just
in general.
Okay.
And I say that because it kind of alludes to the question you asked me. It's continue to not being successful. And not just career-wise, you know. You could be an unsuccessful parent.
Yeah. Now you got a whole family.
So that's just remained my number one fear.
Yeah.
You know, it's like being successful. It kind of bleeds into no matter how you look at it.
Right.
It's like I want to be successful, whereas being a parent, career, playing a sport, playing Street Fighter, whatever.
Right.
I want to be successful.
Right.
So that's my number one. That's my number one fear.
Right.
You know.
Do you? So I'm gonna ask you this question, but kind of a prelude question. Knowing that your emotional training was what it was, and that you're not super emotional to begin with, but outwardly emotional.
Right.
Did you have a preference whether you had a boy or a girl before you found out?
You know, a lot of people won't. I love my son.
Right.
But you know, I always saw myself wanting a girl.
Really?
Yeah. And
Why do you think that is?
Now that I think about it, I think it's because I didn't have that in my life growing up.
So you feel like you need that balance a little bit.
Yeah, it was like, man, little girl, you know, little girl, you know.
Yeah. I'm very glad I have a son because I don't think I would be very good as a girl dad. I'll just let her do whatever she wants.
And that's probably how. I would be. And but you know, and it's like my son though. They're kind of equal, you know, because my son is like, man, it's like I can't. It's like my wife always tell me, you don't want to rush him to grow up. And I'm like, I'm not rushing him, but as a dad, you know, I can't wait till, hey, it's time to play sports.
Right.
You know, you just can't wait for that. Not that we're rushing it.
Right.
You just can't wait. Yeah, you're just looking forward to it.
When did you feel like you hit your stride? Like, okay, I'm a dad. I feel like I know what I'm doing. Because for me, you know, I told the story last episode. It's like for the first 3 months, what am I going to do? You know what I'm saying? I'm in the middle of basketball season. My son is breastfeeding. I'm just there. I have nothing to provide other than maybe change a few diapers.
Right.
You know, maybe wake up with him. It really hit me, man, whenever I had to watch him by myself during spring break. And I had no idea what to do. Like, I didn't know how to put him down. I knew how to put him to sleep. But I didn't know how to put him down so he would stay asleep. But I feel like I kind of hit my stride about month 6. Where I'm like, okay, I think I know what I'm doing. All right. But how when you feel like, okay, I'm a dad now. I'm good. I got this.
So mine, and it's not to come off arrogant or braggadocious, but I felt like I hit my stride when he was born, and it all goes back to how I was raised, because you know now I look as a father, like just the way I interact and the way our household is ran. And it's not to, you know, discredit my wife or anything like that, but it's ran as if I'm all he's got.
Right.
And that's not intentional. That's how I was raised. That's instilled in me. So it's like, my dad when my mom died, my dad was 26.
Wow, yeah.
You know,
it's funny you said it, because I don't think a lot of people realize how young our parents were raising us.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like my father, I think my father had about, I want to say 4 kids by the time he was 25. And so you realize, okay, I can see why some mistakes were made, right? I'm glad you said that, man, because you were 6 and he was 26.
Yeah, he was 26.
Yeah.
So
think about what you was doing at 20. You know what I'm saying? You wasn't raising no kids.
We ain't gonna talk about that. That might get me in trouble. Nah. But no, but I felt as if, you know, I got this. Obviously, it's a learning curve.
Absolutely.
But I felt I was so confident, and during that time, with work, I had the option. I'm fortunate that the company allows paternity leave for dads.
We need to make that like a nationwide thing.
So, fortunate to have it. So he was born in September. That's when Lathan was born.
Yeah.
But I had the option, just from a paternity leave standpoint to not take it immediately.
Right.
So I was being strategic. That's just how my mind thinks. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to take it right now.
Right.
I'm going to wait and take it over the Christmas holidays.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So anyway, I'm saying it because I think like right after he was born, not like right after, but maybe like a day or something. I think I had like a dinner meeting or something for work, and my wife gave me crap about that. And it's like, I get it, you know, and I don't know. But I felt like I still gotta be a provider.
Yeah, so that's what I was gonna ask you, man. Do you feel like that was kind of a branch off the tree of I gotta get stuff done? That was instilled in you by your father.
That's how I operate.
Right.
And it's nothing you bring up a great point. That tagline, I got to get stuff done.
Right.
Because that's how I operate. You know, I don't wait, and it's not to say my wife, she feels internally guilty,
right?
But it's not to throw shade or throw, you know, darts at her. It's just that's how I am.
Because like, where we are is his wife's law practice. Like this is her law firm, so she is a practicing lawyer, which in and of itself, she worked hard for it. So in and of itself, it's just a taxing job. It takes a lot, right? Running a business takes a lot.
A lot.
Right? So you stepped in without, was it like a real discussion, or was it just something that just happened because that's just, you saw it happen that way, so you just innately kind of stepped in, like as you put it, and just took over those duties?
I just do it.
Yeah.
That's just what it is. Like, I don't look at, you know, these traditional gender roles, you know. I cook, I clean. Before this interview, I was mopping.
Right.
You know, I was you know, it's just what I do. I wash clothes, I fold clothes, I hang up her clothes, I do it all. I coordinate, you know, hey, if we're super busy, you know, and hey, I'll have somebody come clean, whatever.
Right.
You know, I just do those things, you know. Look, I drop Lathan off and pick him up a lot of the time.
Right.
You know, not trying to prove, but because Paula is a busy professional, I'm a busy professional. Sometimes she has to be in court early in the morning.
Right.
You know, so I'll get up early and take Lathan to daycare. And it makes me think about my past and how my dad took me to school every morning. Now, obviously, and I'm saying that I'm gonna bridge it together because obviously you gotta take. It's no bus that comes pick your kid up.
Right.
But Lathan goes to a school that is not close by.
Okay.
And it is a school where Paul and I both felt comfortable. That gives us both a peace of mind that, you know, that's out the way.
Right.
But you would see it just compared to you would see it as that parochial school. As that parochial school.
Right.
You know, but it's the daycare, but it's that environment where they learn Spanish, you know.
Right.
And, you know, it's like you get what you pay for.
Because we're going to talk about that because your son is biracial, right? Your wife is Hispanic and you're obviously black. But so do you feel like, number one, did you have an idea of the type of dad that you were going to be? And do you feel like you are that, or do you feel like you're different? And here's why I asked that. I thought I was going to be like militant, you know, spare the rod, spoil the child. And I'm just not like that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just not. Like, am I probably a little tough on him? Maybe.
Right.
But me and my son probably have discussions that you shouldn't have with a 3-year-old. But I'm not that person. Like, I'm not the, you know, I give my son kisses. You know what I'm saying? And that's just not even my normal personality like that. So do you feel like in your mind you will be one way? And do you feel like you are, you know, that way so far in his almost 2 years?
Well, if I recall correctly, Paul and I, we talked about before he was born, like what parent to do this, what parent to do that.
Right.
And I think the discussion was she would be more strict.
Right.
And I wouldn't. But it's the opposite. Like total opposite.
Right.
You know, and to your point about the kisses, you know, I kiss my son.
Right.
You know, and part of that is, you know, my dad wasn't super affectionate.
Right.
You know, I can't remember, like my dad, like the whole "I love you" thing. You know that.
Yeah.
That'll stop a man in his tracks.
For sure.
If I be like, "I love you, bro," you be like,
Yeah, we have no idea how to receive love.
I say that because my dad wasn't like
Wasn't
that.
like that.
You know, he'll make comments like, "You know, I love you."
Right.
You know, but it wasn't just you know, and I don't expect.
Right.
I didn't expect that. But my point is, I try to take that, you know, and I want my son to see both sides,
Okay.
experience both sides, not just from his mother,
Right.
but he needs to know Dad loves you too,
Right.
unconditionally.
Yeah.
But Dad is Dad,
Yeah.
and that's a constant battle, and not in a bad way. But
What does that mean to you when you say dad is dad? Like for you to show your son, what does that mean?
It's like, you know, I'm gonna teach you things about life where your mom may necessarily not teach you.
Okay.
And it's not vice versa.
Just different things, right?
Yeah, vice versa. She's gonna show you things to teach you things that dad maybe, you know, not gonna show you or teach you. And that's why, you know, it's always this in today's society. You hear about. It's always talk about, you know, you got a lot of everybody want to be independent going on, especially women.
Right.
You know, I'm just being transparent.
No, you're right. Go
It's
ahead.
like, but I believe both parents are equally important.
Yes.
100%.
Absolutely.
100%, because I've seen it being raised, and I see my flaws being raised just by a man, like my father. And I've seen, interacted with individuals that's been raised just by a mother.
Right.
And they're all not, you know, but you see the difference.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the same, but they're universal themes.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that, man, because just probably within the last 2 years, I started to realize the difference between my friends, which are most of them, oddly enough, that were raised with both their parents, and the things and the reactions and things like that, you know, my friends have, and then the ones who, like me, who my dad was there for a lot of my, like, but the, you know, adolescence and stuff, he wasn't in the house. And so my reactions may be different. My thought process may be a little bit different, you know what I'm saying? And you say it's the other way, like, you know, with you being raised by just your dad, you may be thinking it's more practical. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just trying to, so what's the resolution? You know what I'm saying?
Seriously.
As opposed to like just hearing the emotions of it and just pouring out. Like, I hear you, but how do we solve this?
That's what, that's exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why I say, you know, it's like we gotta, I tell, you know, my wife, we done had these, I'm talking like in-depth discussions about.
I mean, she's a lawyer, so that must be.
Yeah. I'm not gonna. Yeah, I said discussion to keep it.
I got you. We're gonna call them discussions from now until eternity.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, and I get it, you know, women, because it's like they feel like some women feel like, oh, it's like, oh no, he needs his mom
Yeah.
more than he needs his dad.
I would argue that to anybody. And that's
That's what.
Yeah.
Hey.
Even if you had a daughter, though, again, that's kind of the purpose of this show is to see, because a lot of times fatherhood is taken for granted.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And it's like, man, we are dealing with a lot of different things. Like you said, that fear of failure is real.
Yeah.
Because if we fail as fathers, we don't just fail as fathers, we fail as partners. You know,
Exactly.
we could possibly be setting our sons and daughters up for failure. And it's like, how do I juggle all of this? And so that's what I want to ask you, man. Like, you have your career, which, you know, you've been blessed to be with the same company, because we talked about how volatile possibly it is.
Yeah.
And then your wife starts her own firm. She didn't have her own firm to begin with.
No.
Starts her own firm. Talk to me about the support and what that looks like as a husband and father to help her with her business venture when it's already a busy professional job to begin with. And like, where did you fit in? Where did you feel like you fit in? Was it a discussion? Was it calculated? You know, you seem like a calculated guy. So how did that come into play?
Well, it's been some, you know, being an attorney, super stressful.
Right.
Very stressful profession. And, obviously I'm not an attorney, so I don't know, but, I still don't know.
Right.
I just hear, it from my wife and, and so just that point is highly stressful.
Right.
But, she worked for some firms, before, prior to finishing law school. Then she worked for a smaller practice where she was kind of like I don't know if this is even correct terminology, but like a sub partner.
Right.
Where she gained a lot of experience, but, certain things she was growing. At the same time, you're growing. Mm-hmm. And she got to the point where she kind of outgrew that place, and she was just thinking about, we talked about, starting our own thing. And me coming from having that entrepreneurial background,
right,
like I was raised, I'm all for it. But you just have to have a plan, mm-hmm. and I was super supportive and continue to be super supportive of that, and I really kind of pushed her, to say, hey, let's, like, if you're not happy with it, hey, let's
right.
do it, you know? And it happened in the middle of COVID. Well, towards it.
Right.
Yeah, no, in the middle of COVID. Right. It's like because that's what, things happen for a reason.
Right.
Because when COVID hit, she was still working for the other firm, mm-hmm. but things kind of took its own turn, mm-hmm. She was at the house, where we both was at the house, right. working virtually. She just kind of started to realize, like, it basically presented opportunity.
Right.
A lot of people don't like change, but mm-hmm. change presents opportunity.
That's true.
So anyway, one thing led to another, and one day we just was like, hey, let's start looking at some spots.
Right.
And it's scary. It's scary, especially when you don't come from, a family with, generational wealth. Yeah. You kind of got to get on your own.
But do you feel like that ability to take that step, that ability to look at it and say, this opportunity, I can do this on my own, comes from seeing your dad have so many of those, ventures and being kind of working himself into being a businessman?
Yeah, and that's what it definitely does.
Right.
And like I say, I told Paul, and I continue to tell and just really encourage her, hey, when you're an entrepreneur, you're going to have ups and downs,
right.
ups and downs. But you just got to be in it for the long haul. It's not going to happen overnight.
Right.
And just kind of seeing how that plays out, mm-hmm. kind of reinforce, me just really guiding her and pushing her, hey, this stuff. Mm-hmm. You could do it. Mm-hmm. It's better to do it for yourself than someone else. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So with some of the foundational things that you learned from your father, mm-hmm. right now you're a father, okay?
Right.
They can't ever take your education from you.
Right.
Kind of showing you to have a business of your own. Are these things that you feel like you're going to push your son to do? Make sure he goes to college.
Oh, yeah.
And, look for opportunities to work for yourself.
Absolutely. And nothing's wrong because it's twofold. You work for, work in corporate America, work for someone.
Yeah.
You don't have the stresses of overhead and, all these other employees and making sure they're paid. And you just don't have all the business expenditures that you would have as an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. So nothing's wrong with that.
Right.
The majority of the population works for somebody.
Okay.
But I'm also gonna, push them, say, hey, if you have a great idea, don't be afraid of failure.
Right. How do you feel like you're guiding him that way now? Because I'll tell you what I had to really think about, and this is why I asked this question. Obviously, we want to protect our kids, right?
Yeah.
Like, we know if you run, you're gonna fall. If you fall, you're gonna hurt yourself.
Uh-huh.
I don't want you not to run. I just don't want you to hurt yourself.
Right.
So, but I had to kind of, not necessarily running, because my son runs everywhere, but I have to kind of watch myself to pull back from stop, don't, because I don't want to instill those fears into him, right? So do you find yourself having to, on the other end now, instill in him that bravery to just go try stuff? Like maybe y'all go do things that aren't out the ordinary or something like that.
Yeah, so, and I'm the same way with, don't touch this,
Right.
don't touch that, because that's just natural reaction.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, like, he's been in swimming since he was maybe 4 or 5 months.
Right.
And that's scary, it's like you dealing with water.
It is.
And it's like, through the 30-minute swim class once a week,
Yeah.
and it's time to bring him underwater, you're like,
hold on.
And Paula's like, oh no,
Yeah.
And I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
We're gonna, I'm like, be aware of the surround, be cautious.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's go, and let's do it. Let's make it happen. Or going to the trampoline park. He's not even 2 yet.
Right.
Going to the indoor playground, and it's a big slide. He's crying. I'm kind of like, I don't want to
inch them along.
Yeah, I don't want to like force him down, but I'm like, come on, like, cause once it's like starting a business.
Right.
You're at the top of that slide. You're looking at that drop. You're like,
I don't know.
But once you get to slide, you're like, this is fun.
Yeah, that's a good analogy, actually.
And then you get up, you try it again.
Right.
So those little incremental things that I'm doing, just based on, his age. But, look, I was trying to put him in soccer lessons 2 months ago.
Yeah.
But the lady was like, you can if you want. But she was like, so much changes when they get 2, because you don't just want them running around, not paying attention or whatever. I say, okay, fair enough.
Fair. And I think, man, that the influence, just you telling me about your dad and then me hearing kind of how you parent, the influence is super apparent. Do you feel yourself kind of like turning into your dad a little bit?
Little bit.
Yeah.
What
ways, and then what ways do you feel like you're different?
I feel as far as being purposeful, about certain things, and not that I hate to say calculated, because I want my son to experience things on his own,
right?
And not just have this this boxed approach,
right.
But I see myself being like my dad more so just from a head of household standpoint.
Okay.
Just kind of like holding the fort and because my goal, honestly, I try to make it, because my wife is such a phenomenal mother and wife. She does a great job in running a practice and and raising our son. I try to make it as seamless as possible.
Okay.
Like she's at the office till 7:30. When she gets home, it's done.
Right.
And when I say it's done, it's like, you hear a lot of working moms like, oh, I'm a working mom. I gotta go home, cook dinner. I gotta bathe the kids.
Right.
I gotta do this. I gotta do that. I gotta do that. Then,
right.
It's done.
Right. Do you feel, just from your experiences with friends with kids and like that, do you feel like that's something that's normal, or it's just natural to you?
That's not normal.
Right.
That's natural to me. I tell you that. It is not normal.
Yeah.
And there's no, it's not, I'm doing something, better than
Right.
It's just not normal.
Yeah.
Because usually it's the other way around.
Right.
And in society, it's a weird dynamic, because it's like, and I get it. Women, they have their challenges within society.
For sure.
Because it's like, if the table would turn, if I was the attorney, and she was still a working professional, it's kind of like, it's more okay.
Right.
Which I get it. The spectrum is screwed up.
Right.
But I think more so you got to focus on the situation at hand.
Right.
But no, it's not the norm.
Yeah.
Because I have friends, I hear it. You know, I talk to people, and I don't, like I say, it's just natural.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to add extra stress.
Right.
That can turn into other stuff.
So we're gonna get now into. I want to go back into, man, your upbringing, right? Because it's obviously unconventional.
Right.
Okay. And then that's kind of bled into your adulthood.
Yeah.
Right. So tell me how, because you're going through all of this stuff, man, and I'll let you get into, as deep into it as you want to or not. But you're going through this stuff as you're bringing your own son into this world, right? So tell me how your upbringing in general has affected your adulthood, and then, because you're going to, Reggie is actually creating a memoir.
Yeah.
Which deserves to be, told. I'm excited to read it myself. And so talk to me a little bit about, man, how your upbringing and those things that occurred has bled into your adulthood.
It really created, who I am today as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
As an individual, as a friend to many people, as a husband,
Mm-hmm.
and as a dad, because, it was multifaceted in the experiences that, I experienced and still is experiencing.
Right.
And still is experiencing to this day, and what I mean by that, this kind of what really prompted the whole memoir idea, because, like I mentioned, my mom was brutally murdered when I was 6. My dad raised me, and that's basically all I knew. I stayed with grandparents from here, time to time. But
Dad was the man.
Yeah, Dad was the man. And a lot of situations you hear that happen.
Yeah.
Child end up being raised by grandmother, grandfather, grandparents.
Aunt, somebody else.
Because Dad, remember, was 26. It's like, OMG.
Yeah.
What just happened?
Yeah.
I can't handle this.
Just out of nowhere.
Yeah. Then you like, I'll be back.
Mm-hmm.
They never come back.
Mm-hmm. Take the easy route.
Right. And shout out to my pops.
Yeah, for sure.
He didn't do that.
For sure.
He didn't do that.
Yeah.
He stuck it out.
Yeah.
It's still sticking it out.
Yeah.
But fast forward, I'm living life, I'm enjoying life, still connected to my dad. We talk. And 2 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
I'm working and I get a call saying that it was from law enforcement back in Louisiana. I get a call saying it was a courtesy call. That's how they phrased it.
Yeah.
Saying that my dad has been indicted for my mother's murder, which was like
This is 32 years later.
32
right?
years later.
Golly.
32 years later.
And you never thought about it like that.
No.
What was that feeling though? Like as a man who's now bringing your son into the world, what was that feeling?
It was kind of just like this feeling of what's next?
Yeah.
I'm like, and it was kind of like, really? Like, it's still happening?
Yeah.
And that just brings up a point. When I first met Paula, we young, still going out. And I told her, I said, when we first met, I put the disclaimer out there. I said, look, this is kind of who I am as a person.
Mm-hmm.
So don't think it as like being overbearing, but I'm like, look, I'm not trying to track you, but if you go out, just let me know you made it.
That abandonment. Like you didn't want to feel like anything could happen, because anything did happen to you. The worst situation that people think about, right? Like you leave and never come back.
Yeah, and I told her that just as like girlfriend, boyfriend.
Right.
And she probably remembers that. I told her that, and I shared with her background because my mother, she went out.
Right.
And she never came back.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's like, my dad gets indicted for the murder of my mother. So I'm like, okay, this is weird, strange. And he's in jail.
Yeah.
He's in jail while my son's being born.
Golly.
I had an AirPod in my ear while he's literally being born. My wife asked me later, like, were you listening to music? I said, no. My dad, I was my dad called, and I was anticipating his call.
Yeah.
Cause my dad, he's real smart, and he he was checking in.
And y'all had been going through the process.
Yeah, he knew about when, and he called.
Yeah.
He's in jail.
His boy having a son now. That's a grandson.
Yeah, he's behind bars in Tangipahoa Parish, Louisiana, and it's just one of those things. It's like by the grace of God, I deal with all this. But that's what really prompted me. I said, you know what? I need to share my story.
Yeah.
And the reason being because a lot of people going through stuff day in and day out, and they go left.
Yeah.
They end up on crack cocaine. They end up drinking themselves to death, or they end up just popping pills.
What stops you from going left? What stops Reggie Reed from taking that? Because you have every right. Okay, like if people were looking from the outside in and you were, God forbid, some sort of alcoholic, or you walked out or something, people could say, not that it's right. I can see how it happened.
Right.
What stops you from doing that?
I think it just really, obviously it's God.
Right.
Like I mentioned before, I'm a firm believer. But also the fact that it ties into my upbringing. It ties into my number one fear, not being successful. It all circles back. It's like, and I done seen stuff. Like I say, I was born in the hood.
Yeah.
Where drugs are right there in your face, where people are selling drugs, and you're seeing the flashy stuff growing up, and you're like, man, like I want rims on a car like that,
For sure, yeah.
But how are they getting it? They're selling drugs.
Yeah, what's the risk reward?
Yeah, and it's like, life's about decisions.
Yeah.
And life is about, it's about 10% of life is what happens, but 90% is how you respond.
Yeah. Risk assessment too.
Yeah. So I could have. So my point is saying, it's all about decisions.
Yeah.
I knew that I didn't want to, go down that path, and I continue to recognize that, and even more now, having a family, full-fledged family, it's like, I got to stay strong. And that's where I think a big misconception is about, because fathers don't wear their emotions on their sleeve.
Right.
Fathers can't come home and vent and complain to their wife. They can.
You can.
But that's not just traditional.
But that's not even how you were raised.
That's not. So, just because I'm not venting and complaining or crying and don't mean I'm not dealing with stuff. Because it's like, hey, it's like I'm holding it. They have a picture. You probably see it's like an iceberg picture. It's like you see it in like a different off. You know what I'm talking about? Where you see the iceberg, and then below the water, it's like, you just see above the water, you just see a tiny iceberg. But you go below the water, it's this big, beautiful, magnificent view of the iceberg.
Right. And you see how deep it is.
Right. Yeah. That kind of describes, me as an individual. Because you just see me, but it's like my feelings, the things I deal with are bigger and broader. And my dad's trial is coming up.
So your dad's trial's coming up.
Yeah.
You still got to be a dad.
You still got to be a dad and a husband.
And you still are dealing with all of these things that happened to you since you were 6.
Still dealing with it.
How do you not project these type of fears and hesitations onto your son? Is that something you actively think about?
I do, but I what I try to do, I really try to, I along with doing the things and really projecting and instilling those things of how I was raised into my son, I also try to deliberately do the things that I wasn't, so much given,
like
just like the affection,
Yeah.
It's like, I tell Lathan, hey, give daddy a kiss. I kiss Lathan, and it just I just try to do more of that because I think that's important.
It is.
Not just to get from a mother.
Right.
I think you got to get it from both sides.
Right. So let me ask you this, man. Your son Lathan is black and Hispanic. we know in America, that means you black.
Right.
Do you have any fears raising him in America? And what are those fears with him being a young black man?
Well, obviously there are fears with everything that's
Right.
going on, you know. But I think it's important for him to really understand the culture.
Okay.
Now I tell my wife, it's like, I can't wait to bring him back to the hood.
Yeah. Yeah.
Seriously, because he, you know, obviously we're blessed. We're two successful parents, and you know, he really hadn't seen the grimy side of life,
Right.
but he needs to see that.
Right.
He needs to understand, you know, that hey, it's not all glitz and glamour,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what really just helped me throughout life is just being street smart.
Okay.
You know, and a lot of people take street smarts out of context thinking, oh, it's dealing with just, you know, different type of activity.
Yeah, navigating the actual streets.
It's not, right.
Right.
It's not. No, being street smarts can, you know, it could apply to corporate America.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of just common sense.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say. Street smarts to
It
me,
don't really mean
it's
that-
just reasosoning.
Right.
Like being able to think. It's like almost like being witty.
Yeah.
Like
it's
I can
common
get myself
sense.
out of situations, get myself in situations if necessary.
A lot of people don't have that.
Right. No, that's true.
Seriously.
That's true.
You're like, really? You didn't think about it? But anyway, it's definitely, you know, but it's not something I just think about and just fear for him. Because I feel like right now, we're in control as parents.
Okay.
We're in control. You know, when I'm driving with my son and he's in the back seat, I think about, like, I'm in control. He's just back there watching his iPad,
Yeah.
watching
Not a care in the world.
watching Blimpy.
Yeah.
Not a care in the world. You know, he's not worried about if that car is gonna put. It's like, I'm in control.
Right.
So right now, at the point we're in control, and we have to, as parents, you know, raise him accordingly and teach him the things that's gonna help him and protect him throughout the remainder of his life.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't sit here and just worry about it. It's unfortunate as a black, you know, individual, black man, that he will face. But you know what? I also think on being optimistic. Like by the time he gets it, maybe things are gonna change.
Right.
That's
fair to think. So for me, I always I have to make him aware. Right.
Yeah, obviously.
But I am really, really, really cautious to not instill an inferiority complex.
Right.
To make him feel like this stuff is going to happen, so you have to protect yourself against
Exactly. That's why I made that point.
Yeah.
It's not something I'm just like, oh, you know, awareness.
Right.
I'm gonna instill self-awareness. You know, for example, you know, everybody's teaching kids about how they interact with the police.
Right.
You know, hey, be aware, but don't be fearful.
Yeah. Also, mom's a lawyer, so if need be, we can pull out the big guns.
That's true. He has a shirt that says, "Don't drop me, my mom's a lawyer."
That's right. That's right. So, with that said, man, and like having him, he obviously with your background, there'll be, you know, we're hoping for the best in your father's case. But whatever happens, that's still his grandfather. Right? Yeah. So how do you feel like you'll go about forging that relationship and keeping, because from the sounds of it, you have a really high esteem for your father.
Oh yeah.
Right? And how do you feel like this trial, this situation will affect you and in turn affect him?
You know, right now it's going to have a great impact on me, obviously, because he really doesn't know.
Right.
He knows who Pawpaw is.
Good.
When they
Right.
FaceTime, like he came out to visit and super excited.
Right.
You know, after my dad left, he was looking in the front seat looking for Pawpaw.
Right.
You know, but you know, just obviously besides praying, you know, for the best outcome, you know, I just try to continue to increase the interactions.
Right.
through, you know, FaceTime
Yeah.
and just kind of making him aware of who my dad is.
Right.
But like I say, it'll have greater impact on me because it's literally a 50-50 shot.
Right.
You know, just based on how the justice system is. And
Yeah, and the fact that it's a cold case that they reopened. And we're not getting too deep into it because it's in the memoir.
yeah,
So you really want to know,
it's-
and the whole trial is going to be in a memoir.
Yeah, I'm
so
writing about all of that.
So we when that comes out, man, we'll definitely keep plugging that, and not on some sales stuff, but this is a story that needs to be told.
Yeah. And my biggest reason for, you know, just telling a story is because I just want people to understand that, you know, everybody goes through stuff.
Right.
Some people go through more than others, and
Right.
some people go through less. But it's really not a reason or excuse to do something out of the ordinary from a negative standpoint. And that's one thing I don't tolerate. I have zero tolerance for excuses.
That's another military thing, by the way.
Seriously. And I'm
Yeah.
not military, but
Yeah.
I'm just like, seriously, like when you hear, people who have both of their parents.
Right.
I'm not judging, but I'm like, you see people, and obviously they could be facing internal demons or whatever. But I'm like, it's no excuse.
Right.
It's literally, you gotta figure stuff out.
Figure it out.
You gotta figure it out.
So how do you stay with all this going on in your, underneath the bottom of your glacier, like you were talking about, or your iceberg? How do you stay present as a father and husband?
I continue to keep it top of mind.
Right.
I'm not saying I'm an expert at it. I'm not saying I'm perfect. My wife has made comments about she don't feel like I'm present. And obviously,
You got a lot going
probably
on.
why.
Right.
But I just really, I try not to, put too much time and energy into it.
Right.
Especially, being that I have a family, I gotta provide for and support. And what's gonna happen is what's gonna happen. I just feel like, especially with it being, it's like my life it's not just really a traumatic experience. It's like my life's been traumatic.
Right.
Because it's like seriously, when all this happened, with my dad being indicted, now you got social media.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people saying this, and you just hear all type of, gibberish. So, you just gotta realize and keep your eye on the prize and keep moving forward. I know that sounds simple, but it's what you gotta do.
Right.
Just keep pushing.
Right. Last two questions, man. Number one, whenever your son leaves the nest, right, goes out into the world, what do you want him to say about you as a dad?
I want him to really just identify me as being a father. Because a lot of people, dad is more playful and, more, I don't know, but just father has that ring to it where, you really was like his support system, whether it's good or bad.
Right.
You were loving, you were caring, you were all of the above.
Right.
You helped mold him, just like my dad molded me into who I am today.
Right.
So that's pretty much what I want my legacy to be with with my son, is that, he was there for me. Because a lot of dads and fathers get a bad rap that they're not there.
Right.
So I want him to know that I'm there, and not just as a baby or a toddler, but throughout his life.
Yeah. So, I noticed that two more, but just one more. As a son, let's say worst case scenario, right? And your father gets indicted. What does that do to your thoughts, if anything, about him, your dad?
I've thought about that. I thought about the fact that, just being knowledgeable, and that's why I say it's 50-50. Just being knowledgeable how things can go the wrong way.
Right.
It kind of just puts me at, just at a blank space.
Yeah.
You know, because it doesn't mean he did it.
Right. Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Right.
You know, but doesn't mean he could have had something to do with it.
Right.
You know, I just really, because I just based our relationship on him raising me.
Yeah.
That's why I have a go on.
Yeah.
You know, my dad's not a monster.
Right.
He raised me.
Right.
He didn't send me to grandma's like I mentioned
Right.
earlier. He was there for me. He's still there for me in a different capacity.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So I can't really just transition and say, oh, and look at him like, you know, as if he's a monster.
Right.
You follow me?
Yeah. So you mentioned before one of your fears was not being successful. You know, we mentioned it just for the sake of the show as a father. How do you know you're being successful as a dad, or how will you know?
You know, they have the joke when you become parents. They say, "Oh, y'all, you gotta do is keep him or her alive." You know,
That's about right. You'll find out it too when he realizes he likes to jump off tables and do crazy stuff.
Yeah, he's doing that. He's been doing that. You know, I just feel, you know, just to keep it brief, I just feel if I'm successful as a dad, just him progressing in life,
Yeah.
you know.